is gamification is usually a form of human-computer interaction. So what
Yeah,
according to you dominates the most, the human or the computer in gamification?
absolutely the human, since it's about human core drives and game mechanics and dynamics that sort of engage us in different ways.
Right.
So
Fantastic.
more human than computer, and you can do it analog, of course, as well. You don't have to have computers in the mix, but since we are sort of living our lives next to our phones all the time, the digital is a sort of a part of us these days.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So game design and strategy are the centerpieces of any successful and engaging project. I hope you agree with that. So how do you practice game design?
How do I practice game design?
Yeah.
Um, I practice it in different ways. If you're talking about the gamification projects that I'm running, I usually do it the design thinking way. I start with defining the problem and finding what users to engage in the solution. Um, After deciding what problems to solve and what concepts might be useful to solve the problems. Um, and the game design perspective I have is from what I've learned over the years. I started out like 19 years ago in the IT business, having a background making my own games and being a teacher and being an actor. And when I started to when I educated myself in system science, these teaching and pedagogical and games sort of fell into place when I started to explore my position in the IT business. I started out as an IT pedagogue, uh, helping people in complex projects to sort of understand what IT is about. And when it comes to IT, I think there are two sides of it. I mean, one is if you can use it, and the other thing is if you want to use it. And the
Mm,
engagement part is very interesting, I think, from both from a human psychology perspective, but also from how we design the systems that are supposed to be used.
absolutely.
And game,
And
um,
yeah, please go ahead.
yeah, I mean the game design aspect of it. I both design games. That's why I sort of I halted a bit on your question and wondering how to answer, because I both design games like serious games, but also like gamification solutions, that sort of digital coach perspective of it. So I think there's two perspectives to it. You have both the game design and the components, but also I mean what is the core service that we are supporting with game design. So long
Absolutely.
answer to a short question.
Absolutely. That's fantastic, Jan. I've also been hearing a lot about your work, and I've been also discussing about. Other day I was talking to Rob about your discussion with him. So,
Yeah.
and I also heard about your discussion with Rob. So, and I found a very interesting question. You have been always a why guy in the gamification than a how guy. So there are two questions which you intend to answer. Why is this happening and how is this
Yeah,
happening? So you're
absolutely.
always stressed upon the why part.
Yeah.
So any thoughts about what makes you the why person in the game?
I want to make sure people know why they are designing things, and the design thinking framework I think is really good in that sense, because it starts with making sure you are designing for the right things and not only designing the right way, sort of. Uh, so the why thing is about what problems do we solve, what challenges are the user struggling with that we need to sort of design for a better use of, and also what possibilities are there and what are the user goals, and that is so much about the why. I can't stop asking why.
I completely understand that, Jan, because as a game designer, you're often being cornered with this idea of you have to give a good game design. I mean, it should be
Yeah.
effective, it should be efficient, it should be simple to understand. So all those characteristics are absolutely bang on target. But more interestingly, often companies don't ask this question: Why are you doing this? What
Yeah.
makes you choose game element A over and why not C? And if A fails, will B come back as a respite? So this is something
Yeah.
which I often see companies don't ask these questions to you. So have you also faced similar dilemmas in your work life when you deal with companies?
Yeah, I think, I mean, that question, why are you supposed to play this game? I mean, you can't force people to play. They need to play voluntarily. That's part of why you play a game, because it's fun, and I want to play this because it makes me sort of happy. And I think the same thing goes with, I mean, IT systems and stuff like that. Why should I use this system? What's the value? What's in it for me? What do I get from using this system? How does it benefit me in my life? Or does it make my work easier? Or does it make things better for anyone else? I mean, that is part of the core drives. And I'm sure you're familiar with Octalysis and the player types and stuff like that.
Right.
Are you driven by purpose, or are you driven by being social and interactive with others and stuff like that? And it all comes back to that. And even when you design IT systems, that is a really good question. What is your motivation to use this system? Do you get shit done, or does it make you happy, or does it make you healthier, or does it help you to complete your job in a more efficient way? So I think that looking at games, because games are out on the public market, and you have to be that good for people to actually play and buy your games. While IT businesses, sometimes they are sort of part of a deal that is already contracted, and you sort of have to stick with what you get. And I refuse to accept that. I think the IT systems, they have to sort of deliver in an engagement way as good as the
Absolutely.
game.
In fact, so I also saw that you have also worked for a bunch of companies that makes you, I mean, and now you are more of a freelancer in the business. So I also feel that while so there has to be a different pedagogy of working when you, hi Manish, there's a different pedagogy of working when you work with clients, and there is a different way of functioning when you work independently. So
Yeah,
what makes you? I mean, what excites you? Are you happy in a company kind of a setup, or you are happy in more of a entrepreneurial setup, or wherein you are the boss and you decide everything?
yeah, that's a good question. It depends. I like the mixed variation with different clients. Right now, I think I counted to 9 clients or something, while some are more like a bigger commitment, and some are like, I mean, doing a workshop and having them going on their own. And I teach some. I work with the tourism business, long-term project that is running from last spring to till this fall. So we have time to develop, and we speak with different people. And the problem objective wasn't that clear from the start, but we sort of worked with the actors and found our way. And then I have a client in the what is it called, the plumbing business. Helping them with the digital sort of customer journey, and very little gamification there. But then again, it all comes back to human core drives, and how do we make this work from a change management perspective? How do we create the value? How do we visualize the value to the end user? How do we make the interaction as engaging as possible to have them carry through all the way? So as an answer to your question, whether I like being in sort of, I'm very much a consultant at the moment, and not that much of an entrepreneur, because I don't run my own projects that I finance. But I will be doing it soon, and I have been doing it. But right now I sort of come from the IT consultancy business, but I'm in a strategy position, so I sort of can tell the customer what they need to do. So best of both worlds, I guess.
Absolutely. It falls back to this next question, which largely says that we often are driven by this jargon world in gamification. For example, the white hat, the black hat gamification, the 8 core
yeah.
drives and stuff like that, right? So when you deal with clients, is it really tough for you to explain them why are you doing this, the why part? Well, we understand as game designers, we are convinced in our mind that okay, this is what is going on. So
Yeah.
is it easy to convince the other side of the story?
Well, I don't work that practically with sort of the Octalysis framework. I use it more like inspiration and trying to have them get their head around what drives people in different ways. And then, so I think the black hat and the left hat and white hat and the black hat and the white brain. No, the left
Right
brain,
brain
right.
and the left brain.
Yeah. You see, I'm a bit messed up in my head because I've been doing tuition all day, so I'm pretty tired. But what I mean is that is sort of the big picture, and then when it comes down to nuts and bolts, I sort of because what clients mostly understand is the solution, and then when I have the solution, I can connect it back to. I mean, people need some motivation, whether it's sort of logical or creative, whether it's something that is I mean, positive and negative feedback, like in a dynamic balance to make it more dynamic, the experience. And I tend to use the MDA framework more and more these days because it's so hands-on. I mean, designing core loops and sort of thinking about the mechanics and the aesthetics and stuff like that. And one of my colleagues in the gamification business, Andrew Mashevsky, which I talk a lot to, and I use his book in my course that I'm teaching right now. And we had him for a Q&A the last week.
Okay.
I think he ties them all together in a good way and to make it really sort of actionable.
Absolutely. So, so when you deal with companies, what is the biggest challenge which you face in the pre-implementation and in the post-implementation phase of gamification?
I think first of all, is it the gamification project? Deciding if it is a gamification project or not is, I think that's a crucial first step, because there has to be some behaviors to drive, right? And I think the hardest thing is to, in the pre-phase, to find the actual problem, to define it, and to find the concept, and then the rest just sort of rolls on. But there's also a crucial part when you, I mean, involving the users in testing and iterating it to actually make it work with the users. But because something you thought would be a perfect fit for a target group and a context, then when it comes to usage, it doesn't really work. So I usually start with sort of design prototypes and test them a lot and iterate them until it feels right. And then, of course, every project doesn't have the budget to do it enough. And sometimes you just have to jump in the water and learn to swim, sort of. Yeah, but,
I know.
yeah.
I think that's a fact. I think a lot of times companies, in fact, more than companies, we also face challenges in terms of managing resources, and be it
Yeah.
tactical resources or, for that matter, even knowledge-based resources. But more interestingly, there's something which is at the heart of what you do, and that is storytelling. And I've been
Yeah,
also seeing that
absolutely.
you're also pretty much interested, Jan, in relating everything with stories, right? So why do you think stories are the biggest asset to gamification industry?
I think stories are sort of crucial to how we function as human beings. I've read a lot about this recently, and I also lectured a bit about it. I mean, telling stories is a way for us to remember things in an easier way. It's easier to remember things that are connected in sort of a storyline than just loose facts and bullet points and stuff like that. So that's one thing, to connect it. And I also heard that it connects sort of, I think it's the serotonin, all those chemicals, right?
I know.
The same way that you are, no, it's the oxytocin, I think. The same way you are sort of embraced by a hug and that releases oxytocin. The same way a good story sort of embrace you and releases oxytocin, I've heard. But I'm not a chemist, so I can't tell. But I love stories because I can sort of connect to stories, and also it's something that makes things, people believe it's something is more true. Truthfulness is something that is sort of connected to stories. If it's a good story, you believe in it, right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, are there any personal favorites when it comes to a storytelling and b understanding and playing games? Any games do you like a lot? Games that inspire you, stories that have inspired you?
Yeah. One of my favorite TV console games is Last of Us, the first one, which is really story driven with a sort of really filmic intro, and when you how you are thrown into the situation, like film storytelling. And then I love how sort of there are some game designers that sort of use games to tell stories about. I mean, about important things. I mean, like Jane McGonigal with Word Without Oil and I Love Bees, and those ARG games are sort of really appealing to me. How to sort of throw you into a fictive story to sort of change your attitude towards things. So I think game has a real good, I mean, power to sort of embrace you into understanding things, complex things. We've been playing, or at least I have been trying to play a lot of Pandemic during the pandemic. The
Oh,
cooperation game is super, super great game.
I know. I've also tried playing that, although so there are times when I play, and there are times when I will equally get bored about playing the same game
Yeah,
multiple times. So
yeah.
calls my next question, Jan. Is Are there times when you really get bored of doing your job? Gamification is equally fun job and equally tiring job. And
Yeah,
if you are dragged by boredom, what brings you back?
I think since I don't I don't only do I'm not only doing gamification. I do a lot of UX and digital strategy and stuff like that. So I sort of have a good blend, I think. But sometimes what stresses me out is having too much to do at the same time, and when you're not able to sort of focus on one thing and sort of dive into it, and that could make me frustrated. Not bored, maybe, but more like frustrated. So if we have the flow funnel here, it's not bored, but sort of anxiety rather. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's something, and more importantly, during this unprecedented times, we are all stuck up at house. We are all logged in this COVID-19 situation. Things are more frustrating these times, and during these times, I'm sure there will be a light outside the tunnel. But
Yeah,
this also brings me to this interesting question: that do you think that there is an industry which has yet to encash the power of gamification, and there's huge potential out there, but somehow people are not jumping into it?
I think it's because of its dark history, actually, that some still lingers on. I mean, the fact that the people tried some really simple solutions early on and still are, because of its legacy with points badges and leaderboards, and not understanding the connection to, I mean, to intrinsic motivation, and what really motivates you, and what is your drive in this situation. So I think that is what we still struggle with. And I had this conversation with Andre the last week when he was over to see my class about
Mm.
should we call it gamification or not, and he was into no, probably it will fade away and be called motivation design. And I mean, like a tool in the UX toolbox. But I'm not so sure. I think the player perspective is really interesting, because uh, if you name a user player, you sort of make him more interactive and more in power to make choices and sort of to drive the game, rather than to sort of be pushed over, lower the thresholds and make everything so easy. Because I like that sort of contradiction between playing UX and gamification. That sort of UX is about lowering the thresholds and making
Correct.
everything easy, and minimizing the clicks and make it more over watchable. While gamification is about building ladders and creating challenges and hiding things away until you deserve it and stuff like that. So I think that is, to me, that is gamification, and that is not anything else. So I'd like to sort of give gamification a better name than before.
And what would be that? What would be that name?
No, I think gamification is that name, but I think make it sound better from explaining it. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, do you want to recommend anything to our viewers who would like to learn, practice, and implement gamification, or at least enter this field of gamification as a novice player, for that matter?
Yeah, I think one good thing is to watch the TEDx talk from Jane McGonigal about how games can make a better world, because I think that is to me, that and finding Yukai Shao's Octalysis model was sort of the revelation for me when I started out like 7 or 8 years ago. Is it that long? Yeah, something like that, because it makes sense, because we are irrational creatures that sort of, we need meaningfulness, and we need choices, and we need sort of engaging design, I think. So that, and of course I could sort of list a lot of things that I sort of pour over my students. There are a lot of great articles. I have a friend, a Swedish friend, who is doing a PhD in gamification and learning. You should interview him if you get the chance.
Sure.
I can give you the information after. His name is Adam Palmqvist, and he wrote the first book about gamification and learning in Swedish, research-based. He has written quite a few interesting articles about implementing gamification and results like cheating and from a company perspective, the client not understanding that it's not a game, but it's gamification, and expecting it to be like World of Warcraft when it isn't, of course, and stuff like that. Because we don't have the budget to build, World of Warcraft environments. We sort of say a button and then you get the badge. Oops, this is not World of Warcraft. Obviously.
Absolutely, I know. I think I completely understand this, because a lot of times poor gamification is often seen, and it's because of a compulsion, because the companies want people to implement gamification. So, as for the namesake, a lot of companies intend to just jump into this boat, expecting that it will be one of the greatest tales of Titanic which will happen, but nothing happens after that.
Absolutely. To me, it's so obvious. I don't know if we are sort of a chosen breed, not to hire myself to any heights, but I think it's so obvious that, just rewarding someone with points for logging into the system, that is like a hole in the head to me. It's not valuable to me to be able to log into your stupid system. What is valuable to me is sort of interaction with other people, someone giving me a high five for doing a good job or something. So it all comes back to why you should do things and motivate people, I think.
Correct. Absolutely fine, Jan. So this brings us to the last part, and which I told you already, that there will be a small game which we have planned up, and
Okay.
this game is more like a rapid fire round which you usually do it. So the rules are pretty simple. I'll say a word, and the first word which comes to your mind, you will reply back.
Okay.
Okay. So if you are ready, let's begin with this. Right. So the first word is love,
Red.
freedom,
Running.
work,
Happy.
creativity,
Painting.
education,
Pain.
boredom,
Shikshant Mihaili. I can't pronounce his name.
I know. Games,
Fun.
technology,
Interesting.
Books,
Love.
animation,
Cartoons.
success,
Me.
experiments.
Professor Balthasar. I don't know if that's a guy in your.
And story.
True.
Fantastic. That's good. Good, Jan. We have. This is a fantastic round of discussion. I always love this, right? Because I get to know a lot about people, which I usually don't want to ask. But obviously, that people tend to answer questions on an impromptu thing. So I don't know if this is gamification or not, but this is fun. This is definitely
I
fun.
love it. Let's say it is.
Fantastic.
Was
Over to you,
engaging
Manish.
anyway.
I know. Thank you, Jan. Over to you, Manish. Manish, hi. I'm
Hi,
I'm
Manish.
done with my set of questions.
Hello, hello,
Over to you.
hello. From a non-technological person point of view, suppose like teacher, like I am, okay, I don't know UFX, I don't know all these things. Okay, what I know is I want to engage my students. So what would you suggest to us, the simplest possible way for gamification so that I can engage students and they would not even come to know that they have learned?
I think probably not gamification, but I use a lot of quizzes.
Quizzes.
Quizzes, the system in. There is a service called quizzes.com that sort of provides a quiz system. I use it sort of starting every week, recapping the last week, sort of making sort of quiz game, time-based quiz game where everyone gets to answer and you can sort of get feedback on if it was right or not. I tend to start do that since we are doing everything digitally right now. I teach a class with 60. I don't know if you heard it, but I teach a class with 60 students, university college. I've been doing it. This last course, it was 3 weeks, and I find it hard with the engagement as well. Though I try hard to sort of decorate the virtual boards and stuff like that. And we do a lot of group thinking, sort of design thinking, collaboration, post-it exercises. I'm a certified design sprinter with Jake Knapp and those guys. And I love those sort of processes when you sort of brainstorm structured and sort of vote for things and then prioritize them and take it to the next step. And there are some great exercises that is maybe not that much gamification, but it's, I mean, the co-op perspective of the co-op dynamics of keeping people engaged online is, and I use Miro board, used to be real-time board. I think it's a pretty easy tool where you can sort of use digital templates for whatever. I even made a word hunt game myself that I published to Miroverse. I had some guys sort of giving me feedback that was sort of, I hid stuff behind moons and satellites and stuff like that, so they
Oh,
had
great.
to find pictures. And I had two groups competing against each other, so I put up 2 mirror boards and said go and gave them access to, and they had to go in, and I put a split screen up and shared my screen where they were competing and sort of finding pictures of I had sort of famous persons and vision from the Marvel universe, and they had to find out what the name was, take the first letter, and then sort of create a sentence. And the one who created the sentence, I wrote in chat, won. And I like those sort of boss fight challenges to sort of finalize a chapter or a course where you sort of 1 week of learning might be about sort of psychology and gamification, and then you sort of end up exploring those things. So I tend to sort of make games of the situation and create sort of group dynamics that I think could work. And of course, there are dynamics in the video tools. You just have to use them in the right way. We use Teams, which is not a super great tool, but and we create breakout rooms the way they do in Zoom as well, but we have to create them beforehand and they can work together in groups. So I think even
Great.
though working in in groups and projects like that could be sort of a challenge, because it depends on who you are together with and stuff like that. But I think group dynamics and sort of using appointment dynamics like time and giving them sort of challenges is something that could sort of create a sense of urgency and sense of collaboration as well. So